We begin in France, where hundreds of security forces are searching for a gunman who went on a shooting spree near a popular Christmas market in Strasbourg, killing 3 people. The French Interior Minister said the suspect, a local 29-year-old, escaped after twice exchanging fire with soldiers and police close to the Christmas market cathedral. He's believed to be injured. The government's raised the national security level and has strengthened border security. Eliza Philippidis has the latest.
A city on lockdown. These are the scenes just moments after the shooting. Confusion, panic. The 29-year-old gunman opened fire targeting people in his sights. He attacked using an automatic weapon. The shooting started at around 7 last night local time. People ran from the scene, shutting themselves inside bars and restaurants. Some people had no clue what they were walking into.
When I saw the army with a group of 10 to 12 soldiers walking towards me with their guns pointed to the street, to the people, and around them everyone was running from all directions. So as I was walking past a building with a courtyard, I entered the courtyard, and as other people next to me did, we threw ourselves to the ground because we didn't know what is happening.
Some people tried to help those who were shot.
And I saw a person with apparently 2 shots into the head lying on the bridge here. We tried to engage in resuscitation activities. We took him into a restaurant and we tried for 45 minutes to resuscitate him. There are no ambulance services apparently able to enter the area. And after 45 minutes we stopped the resuscitation efforts because the doctor told us over the phone that it's senseless.
Witnesses describe seeing several people lying on the ground struck down by the shooter. As soon as it became safe, ambulance crews were sent in to collect the injured and take them to hospital. Police said the suspected gunman was known to authorities and was on France's watch list of suspected extremists. Earlier yesterday, authorities went to his Strasbourg home to arrest him, but he was not there. They found grenades in the property. President Emmanuel Macron has been briefed in Paris. The French Interior Minister put plans into action.
Le gouvernement vient de décider de passer en urgence attentat.
The government decided to switch to a state of emergency with the setup of reinforced controls at border crossings and also at all of the Christmas markets around France to avoid similar events taking place.
Today, people will be wondering whether it's safe to go to work or send their children to school. Questions will be raised about how to best protect the French people from attacks like these. Eliza Philippidis, BBC News.
Well, I want to talk to now Tessa Oscilla. You can see behind me here, she's with Euronews and was at a restaurant near to where the shooting happened and is in Strasbourg now. Tessa, thanks for being on BBC World News. So just tell us the very latest, what you're hearing about what's going on.
Well, I'm outside on the street here, very close to the city centre, just about a 10-minute walk. The city is waking up after that terrible evening last night. In fact, I think some people were just allowed to walk out of the city centre about after midnight, so it's only been a few hours since then. So we know the alert level has been increased and that more police and military are on the street. Even last night we already see I've already seen more of them on the streets, and I was speaking to some of the police officers. Many of them are not even from this area. They have been asked to come from the different regions to help out with the ongoing manhunt. And I think the question that people here are asking, even last night, wondering, has he been arrested? Is it safe to be out on the streets? Now, the Interior Minister, he said that schools and high schools here will be open, but it is up to the parents if they would like to let their children go to school today. I think that is the main question, is whether it is all right to be out in the street. Just that, let's not forget that Strasbourg is such a small city, and that's the reason why a lot of us were locked down last night at the city centre. I myself, we were just entering a restaurant last night. We would just come from the European Parliament. It is also the parliamentary session of the Parliament, the plenary session, that is. And as soon as we got inside, we got word from some of our sources that something was happening, that there was an event in Strasbourg, and slowly we saw the shutters of the restaurant closing. I saw a couple of police officers in front of that restaurant. I think the owners did not want to cause panic. It was a jam-packed restaurant. All hotels here are packed as well. A lot of people, especially at this time of the year, coming to Strasbourg specifically for the Christmas market. So we were locked in there for a few hours. The police officer came in and told us, please stay here. We don't know how long, 10 minutes, an hour, but the situation is being dealt with, that they're looking for that suspect indeed. So the mood inside throughout that evening, it was calm as information started trickling, but we were really told not to stay in. I have a colleague who was just outside trying to get into that same restaurant. She was ushered into another restaurant, and there the owner was a bit more stressed and had to turn off the lights. He didn't want any reporting from within, because I was reporting from a corner, not turning around my camera, obviously, so as not to identify exactly where we were. All very close indeed. Helicopters overhead all night, and as soon as we got out, we saw all the police cordon and security. And just want to point out that even before the attack, the security here is already heightened because of the Christmas market, because this is such a big deal in Strasbourg, a very old Christmas market. A lot of people come here. We were checked, our bags were checked before entering that main area in the city right next to the market and the restaurants.
Tessa, just very briefly, what are people saying to you that you've talked to about the possible motive behind this? Because he's not been named, the 29-year-old, but he is known to the police. He is a suspect. What do people think the motive was? Initially, I heard that people thought it was to do with the members of the European Parliament meeting in Strasbourg, but actually, since then, it's thought it's not to do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spoke to some of the locals here last night. Some of them even claimed to have seen him running through the street. Obviously, we couldn't verify that, but they said that because Strasbourg is such a small city, and wherever he may be hiding, that he might have been, getting help from people. So they said that it could possibly be because he has been radicalized, or possibly because he had some mental illness. I mean, this is all speculation, but I think what locals tell me is that it is possible that he's evading police capture because he's getting help, because there are a lot of tight-knit communities around here. Because yeah, you've got to wonder, the city is so small and still they haven't found him. I think that's one of the biggest questions we're trying to find out. We asked the authorities, why is it taking so long to find this one person?
All right, Tessa, thank you so much for joining us. You've had quite a night. Tessa Oscilla there. Just to say, of course, when we get any more news or information, we will make sure we bring you right up to date. Now, Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May is fighting to save her Brexit deal and potentially her premiership amid renewed claims Conservative MPs are close to forcing a vote of no confidence in her leadership. There are growing rumours rebels were on the brink of or had actually reached the threshold of 48 letters needed to trigger a vote. Our political correspondent Ben Wright reports.
The Prime Minister arriving back in Downing Street last night in the dark about whether or not she faces an imminent vote of confidence in her leadership of the Conservative Party. Mrs May had been in European capitals trying to find something to soften opposition to her Brexit deal in Westminster, but Tory opposition seems to be hardening. The Chief Whip was also in number 10 late. The man who enforces discipline among Tory MPs knows the number of rebels will be critical. According to the rules, if 48 Conservative MPs submit letters to this man, Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of the 1922 committee, a confidence vote must be triggered. And several sources, including a cabinet minister, have told the BBC they believe the 48 letters required for a vote have been submitted.
Will she please, at this late stage, put the backstock and all its horrors behind her?
The former Environment Secretary, Owen Paterson, has added to the tally. Downing Street sources are playing down an imminent vote against Mrs May, and another senior Tory said a confidence vote would be a huge mistake.
This is not what should be happening, that it's really important matter for the country, not just the Conservative Party, but the country. To undermine a Prime Minister at this stage seems to me to be wholly wrong.
Theresa May faces another difficult day with Prime Minister's questions and a visit to Ireland to meet the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar. as she searches for something to shore up her standing in the Tory party and Parliament. Ben Wright, BBC News, Westminster.
Well, we have Rebecca Harding with us, Chief Executive and founder of Coriolis Tech. Good to see you. Global risk is your area of expertise, and we are talking serious risk when it comes to Brexit and the process we're in right now. And of course, all the attention is on Theresa May yet again. It feels like we've been here before, but this time many are saying, including Laura Kuenssberg, our political editor, that perhaps we're in a different place this time when it comes to challenging her leadership.
I think the reason why we might be in a different place is simply because the anger in Westminster, the fact that a vote wasn't held yesterday, was palpable. She's gone round trying to convince everybody, and MPs feel as though they should have had a vote. And this has led to the vote of no confidence, prospectively, and we'll wait and see what pans out today, but there is this palpable anger in Westminster. The key thing is actually the uncertainty that it creates. As Sterling had a really grim day yesterday, and there's a sense that we really do need to bring this to a head, I think, in order to be able to make a clear understanding of what happens next.
All of this was going on while she wasn't in the country. She's been sort of touring around Europe, talking to various key leaders in Brussels and Germany, etc. Parliamentary questions this afternoon, and then a meeting with Sir Graham Brady, who chairs the 1922 committee. You know, we all sort of will be watching with bated breath this afternoon to see what does happen. But she's then going to head to Ireland. From her perspective, she is basically, you know, single-minded in getting this Brexit deal through.
Well, she sees it as the only option on the table. She knows, and she heard yesterday, that European ministers, European countries aren't necessarily going to amend anything at all. They can't amend anything. They might be able to make some conciliatory noises. And so as a result, she's really got no choice but to look as though she's carrying on and to try and get this deal through. The problem is that even Varadkar yesterday, the Irish Taoiseach, was saying that, you know, there are still ways out of all of this. There is the process can be halted. John Major said the same thing yesterday. So she's got this huge pressure from all sides, and in a sense her only way of coping with it is to just plough on through.
All right, thank you for now, Rebecca. So you were just looking at our story there on BBC Online whilst we were discussing that. The analysis from our political editor Laura Kuenssberg is there, but just to clarify that Sir Graham Brady has asked for a meeting. He's asked to see the Prime Minister later today. So whether they have a meeting or not is not confirmed. Just to clarify the detail on that, but you can have a look at our story online, and all the analysis is there. Rebecca's back later. We've got more for the news briefing still to come as well here on the programme. From Mission Impossible to Mo Salah, masterclass. Both Tottenham and Liverpool qualify for the knockout rounds of the Champions League.
John Lennon was shot at the entrance to the Dakota building in the center of New York. There's been a crowd here standing in more or less silent vigil, and the flowers have been piling up.
The 14th ceasefire of this war ended at the walls of the old city of Dubrovnik. This morning, witnesses said shells were landing every 20 seconds.
People are celebrating the passing of a man they hold responsible for hundreds of deaths and oppression. Elsewhere, people have been gathering to mourn his passing.
Imelda Marcos, the widow of the former president of the Philippines, has gone on trial in Manila. She's facing 7 charges of tax evasion. She pleaded not guilty.
The Prince and Princess of Wales are to separate. A statement from Buckingham Palace said the decision had been reached amicably.
You're watching The Briefing on BBC News. The headlines. A gunman has opened fire near a Christmas market in the French city of Strasbourg. At least 3 people are dead and a dozen more injured. The gunman is known to the authorities, who've begun a terror investigation. Officials say he'd been previously identified as a national security risk. 6 people claiming to be migrants from Iran have been rescued from a small boat off the coast of England. More than 100 migrants have crossed the English Channel from France in November. The Dover-Calais route is the world's busiest shipping lane, and the British authorities are warning of the dangers of trying to cross in small vessels there. Our correspondent Colin Campbell has this exclusive report.
Emerging from the darkness, an inflatable dinghy. It's 2 a.m. We're in the middle of the English Channel. The dinghy is motoring at full speed from France towards the Kent coast.
Are you okay? Okay?
We get a thumbs up. However, the boat is dangerously overcrowded, taking on water. The 6 migrants, cold, scared, desperate, but determined to get to the UK.
This dinghy is in a precarious position. It's vulnerable because it's now entering a shipping lane and there are a number of ships coming towards it. So we're shepherding it almost, I think, at the moment, so it remains in a safe position.
We're on board a Dover fishing boat. This is the 3rd migrant rescue for skipper Matthew Coker in 3 months.
There was 5 ships coming down in one lump, and he cut across in front of them, and I don't know, if we hadn't been with him, them ships wouldn't have gone round it, because I'm only just picking him up, so I don't think they would have seen him. As you can see, there's no lights on the boat at all.
The migrants, who are wrapped in blankets and scarves, speak little English.
Where are you from? You're Iranian. The water at the moment appears to be going into the back of the dinghy, but they're continuing, they're not stopping, they don't want our help. It's a desperate race to try to get to the UK for these people.
Although they decline our offers of help, they do stop to ask for water, which I lower down to them in a net. Okay. In the last 3 months, more than 100 migrants have made this treacherous crossing. A fortnight ago, we exposed how some of the smuggling operations are being planned from a makeshift migrant camp in Dunkirk. We secretly filmed using an undercover researcher.
A boat, it will cost you £3,000 to £4,000. I'm taking 3 people with me. They pay in cash. We get a boat and off we go.
Last night the weather and sea conditions in the Channel were good, but in a small boat, in the dark, it's still incredibly dangerous.
The message is going back to the camps or to the people on the other side, to the gangs, that it's working. So more are going to come, and I'm certain they will keep coming until there's an absolute tragedy.
These migrants were safely rescued by the RNLI and the Border Force, but it is a potentially deadly route that more and more are trying. Despite winter, despite the risks, the migrants keep coming. Colin Campbell, BBC News, Dover.
Now let's bring you all the latest sports stories. It's over to the BBC Sports Centre.
Hello there, I'm Tolson Tollett. Coming up in your Wednesday sport briefing, Philadelphia chased down Toronto in the NBA's Eastern Conference. River Plate get ready for the Club World Cup, and Manchester City bid to finish top of their Champions League group. In the NBA, Philadelphia have the chance to keep up the pressure on Eastern Conference leaders Toronto later. The 76ers, aiming for their 3rd straight win, host the Brooklyn Nets. And Joel Embiid was Philadelphia's top scorer in their last game as they beat Detroit 116 to 102. The win leaves them 2 games behind Toronto, who have a tough game later on Wednesday. They head to California to play Golden State Warriors. River Plate fans have been clocking up some air miles this week, and there are more to come. After victory over Boca Juniors in Madrid, the Copa Libertadores champions now head to the United Arab Emirates for the Club World Cup. The competition features the champion clubs from each of the 6 continental confederations. It all kicks off on Wednesday. River Plate and Real Madrid join the competition at the semi-final stage. There's just one qualification spot up for grabs in the Champions League later. In Group F, Shakhtar Donetsk and Lyon will battle out to see who reaches the knockout stages. And Manchester City are already through to the last 16, but they still have something to play for. They need just a point from their home tie against Hoffenheim to secure top spot. The City will be out to restore some pride after losing to Chelsea at the weekend, their first league defeat of the season.
We are in the next stage. That is important, and we want to win the game too, because we have
every game try to win it and to finish first, just for the fact, you know, to finish first, because we never know. So it doesn't matter if you finish first or second. Last 16 is always tough. Have a little bit advantage for the second leg to play at home. But in general, in the next Monday will be a draw in Champions League. The big successor will be there.
In case you missed it, Tottenham are into the Champions League last 16 after a late Lucas Moura goal handed them a 1-1 draw in Barcelona. And that's because also in Group B, Inter Milan could only draw with PSV Eindhoven, taking the North London side through, while last year's beaten finalist Liverpool progressed from Group C after Mohamed Salah's first half goal proved enough against Napoli at Anfield. Paris Saint-Germain finished top, but the Premier League leaders are in the pot for next Monday's draw.
I'm still full of adrenaline. I could fill it in bottles again. So this game was just amazing. It was outstanding, unbelievable. The boys played their whole heart on the pitch. I'm not sure if the right saying, but it's just that they were, with each part of their body, they were in that game.
Now, maybe the tennis off-season, but that doesn't mean the world's best are having a holiday. Quite the opposite, in fact. To stay at the top, well, you've got to just keep on training. That's exactly what Dominic Thiem has been doing. We know the top players are pretty accurate with their serves. You can see that in this clip Thiem posted on Instagram. 2 out of 3 successful hits. Just isn't bad at all. Keep having a look at this. That is some work indeed. Now you can get all the latest sports news at our website. That's bbc.com/sport. But for me, Tolson Toller and the rest of the team, that is your Wednesday sport briefing.
Our thanks to Tolson for that. Let's take a look now at some other events that are taking place today around the world. We start in Myanmar, where there will be a protest to mark 1 year since the arrest of 2 Reuters journalists in the city. A little later in New York, there'll be the sentencing of ex-Chile soccer chief Sergio Hadu over his role in a FIFA corruption scandal. And then this evening in London, it is the European premiere of Mary Poppins, and this stars Emily Blunt, Ben Whishaw, Meryl Streep, Colin Firth, among others. That's later today. We've got business briefing in a moment. I'll be with you for that. But let's now take a look at the story that we're highlighting today. We're asking for your comments. The bar where your cash is worthless. This is a bar not far from London, and a small chain of pubs actually, who've decided to become cashless establishments. They feel it's safer, it's more convenient, but is it more popular with the public at large? That is the question. We've asked you for your comments, and as ever, you have been in touch. So let's share some of the views. We've got Sofiane, who says, if we gradually get rid of cash, i.e. 1p, 2p, 5p, 10p coins, to break some people in gently, that would be a really good idea. We've also heard from Balaji, who just says, who's watching us in India, says, what happens when card is locked by the bank? Your card is not in use for whatever reason. For a few days, cash transactions can go on and need to go on in some circumstances. We've got one viewer in Zimbabwe who says, I've only used cash for bus fares because I don't know for how long now. Cashless society under economic duress, though, in Zimbabwe. Of course, in Zimbabwe, the currency has been under a lot of pressure, and so for many, they haven't used cash for a very long time. Thanks for your comments. I'll see you soon for Business Briefing.
Hello there. There'll be a definite chill in the air for many over the next few days, particularly as the wind picks up, which it will. Western areas, though, will see some outbreaks of rain. And if we look at the satellite picture from a little bit earlier on, well, you can see this stripe of cloud pushing in from the Atlantic. This is a frontal system. We might expect this to sweep through, bringing rain across the country. But instead, this front is running up against this block of high pressure. This is very stubborn. It is not going to move in a hurry. So for many, actually, it will stay dry. A few early fog patches and a fair amount of cloud, but for the vast majority, a dry day in prospect on Wednesday. But through the southwest of England, Wales, parts of Northern Ireland, southern and western Scotland, here we will see some outbreaks of rain at times. Still relatively mild, I suppose, in the west, 10 degrees in Belfast and in Plymouth, but turning colder from the east, though perhaps turning brighter as we head towards the end of the day. And then into the evening, we will have more in the way of clear spells across the country. So overnight, it is going to get quite cold, particularly if the skies overhead stay clear for any length of time. You could well see a touch of frost. And then we get on into Thursday. Frontal system still trying to push in from the Atlantic, but this area of high pressure across Scandinavia still stubbornly remaining in place. And the squeeze between the two will bring us a brisk east or southeasterly wind. So Thursday is going to be a particularly cold feeling day. Rain across the far southwest of England. For most others, it will be dry with some spells of sunshine, just a few showers perhaps creeping into these North Sea coasts, but it will be windy. So even though your temperatures on the thermometer might read between 4 and 7 degrees, add on the strength of the wind and this is what it's going to feel like. If you're spending your day in the Channel Islands, well, it will feel sub-zero and it'll feel more like freezing there in Norwich and in Birmingham. Now, by Friday, the winds will be a bit lighter, so despite some low temperatures, it may not feel quite as chilly. And then, as you can see, a change on Saturday, because those fronts which have been struggling to break through will make a bit more progress at this stage. It'll turn windy, it'll turn very wet for many, and as the fronts run into some cold air, there is the potential for some snow, particularly over high ground in the north.
There are many movies out at the moment that are claiming to be comedies. This beats all of them. And on the one hand, it's a political tale. On the other hand, it is a magic, realist fable. It is baggy and overlong. You can either just see it as a really good popcorn adventure or as something much deeper. That's what a proper cult movie looks like. My problem with it is I wanted it to be darker. The script is laughable, but not in a good way. This has proved so divisive. I was reminded of the friendship between Elliot and E.T. Every time anyone says mockumentary, immediately think, is it as good as Spinal Tap? The answer is no. Very smartly reinvented a franchise, and who thought that was possible? It does the thing that cinema is meant to do at its very best, to completely immerse you, to transport you, to take you to another world.
Words of Wisdom, the film review, Friday at 5:45 on the BBC News Channel.
I'm Catty Kay in Washington.
I'm Christian Fraser in London.
Let's start with
the European Union, Brexit,
Russian interference,
Donald Trump's Twitter feed.
We'll
move on.
I think there are going to be a lot of questions now.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be fascinating to watch.
We're nearly out of time.
This is a big deal.
Beyond 100 Days, Monday to Thursday on the BBC News Channel.
Stories set to shape the news agenda. Headlines freshly written. Original perspectives on the day's unfolding narratives. See the bigger picture as it emerges. The Papers, weeknights at 10:40 on the BBC News Channel.
This is your business briefing. I'm Sally Bundock. Out on bail, the Chinese technology executive Meng Wanzhou. Now, President Trump says he may intervene in the case if it would help get a China trade deal. And another possible easing of those trade tensions. China proposes to cut tariffs on US-made cars from 40 to 15%. And financial markets, therefore, are looking on the bright side. You can see strong gains on the main markets across Asia as there seems to be progress on those trade talks. So let's begin with the story that has dominated for a week or so now. The top executive at Huawei, who's facing US accusations of Iran sanctions violations, was granted bail in Canada on Tuesday, hours after a former Canadian diplomat was said to have been detained in China. So Meng Wanzhou, Huawei's chief financial officer, she is facing extradition to the United States, where she is wanted for allegedly violating Iran sanctions. But Beijing has expressed outrage over her detention. The list of strict conditions of her release pending the outcome of the extradition case is lengthy and includes the surrender of her passports and electronic monitoring. Our North America correspondent Peter Bowes has the latest.
Another day in court for the Chinese telecoms executive, with tensions running high. Meng Wanzhou is accused of covering up Huawei's ties to a company that sold equipment to Iran in defiance of sanctions. The US wants her extradited to face trial. She denies the charges. Bail was set at $7.5 million. Meng Wanzhou will be under constant surveillance and will have to wear an electronic tag. Extradition proceedings could take several years. Donald Trump has said he could intervene in the process if it would serve national security interests or help close a trade deal with China. For now, the bail decision will ease tensions with China, which had threatened severe consequences if it had been refused. But relations between the two countries remain strained following the detention of Michael Kovrig, a Canadian former diplomat in China. The Canadian Foreign Ministry has said there is currently no explicit indication of any link between the case and Wanzhou's arrest, but according to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, it's being taken seriously. Washington has also expressed concern.
We urge China to end all forms of arbitrary detention and to respect the protections and freedoms of all individuals under China's international human rights and consular commitments.
The arrest will add to jitters in the financial markets, with fears that it'll only exacerbate US-China tensions in the current trade negotiations. Peter Bowes, BBC News.
Well, as we saw earlier, actually, financial markets today are feeling more confident about the outlook when it comes to the trade tensions between the US and China. And that's partly because of the news that China is reportedly ready to cut tariffs on US-made cars to 15%, the same tax levied on imports from other countries. So let's go live now to our Asia Business Hub. Rico Hizon has got the details. Nice to see you, Rico. So at the moment, it's just reports, but it's really boosting trade on financial markets.
But even though it's just a report, Sally, it's feeding a lot of optimism that this ongoing trade negotiations with the U.S. could be resolved within the 3-month truce period both the U.S. and China agreed on. So the news of the potential tariff reduction sending shares as well of U.S. automakers surging. And the report said, though, that China's cabinet will review the proposal to cut tariffs. So at this point, there is nothing definitive as of yet. President Trump tweeted that very productive conversations are taking place with the Chinese, predicting important announcements to come. And this car tariff gesture, Sally, is the latest in a series of positive developments this week, as China plans to resume purchases of American soybeans, with officials considering buying between 5 million and 8 million tons. China said last week it would deepen reforms in the area of science and technology and put more effort into protecting intellectual property rights. But if you take a look at recent history, it also gives investors reason to be cautious about these reports by the March 1 deadline, because Beijing has shown a pattern of making promises it doesn't implement or that ultimately don't satisfy the United States. But one analyst said that this could be the first of many symbolically significant and substantively modest concessions that China offers in order to prolong the trade truce. Sally.
So that's certainly, for many, a step in the right direction, they feel. We'll see how we go from here. And in the meantime, you may have been wondering where Rico has been. We've always said he's an absolute star. Well, now it would seem it's official, because, Rico, you're looking very serious, but we're talking about your star that you received in the Philippines. Tell us more.
Oh.
He's got it now.
You know what?
He's got it.
Yes. Yes, it was a major honor, Sally. You know, I lost my connection for a few seconds there, so I only heard the last part of what you said about what happened in Manila. But it is indeed an honor, And of course, working with Sally Bondoc, working with the BBC World News team, made this Walk of Fame star all possible. Thank you to you, Sally.
Rico, the glory is all yours, I have to say. Now, if you have no idea what we're talking about, you've got to follow him, and I've also tweeted it about it as well. You can see the star on the Walk of Fame. It's good to have you back. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Sally.
Bye-bye. See you soon. Right, let's take a look now at some other business stories to be across today. Facebook suffered a bomb threat this morning at its Menlo Park headquarters near San Francisco. The threat prompted authorities to evacuate the building, but after a sweep of the structure, there was no word of any explosive sounds found even. Both Facebook and police said everyone is safe. A day after Urjit Patel's surprise exit as head of the Reserve Bank of India, Shaktikanka Das has been appointed as the new boss of the central bank. Mr. Patel's resignation triggered a sell-off in the rupee on concerns that moves by Narendra Modi's government are threatening the banking regulator's independence. China's music streaming company Tencent Music has reportedly raised over $1 billion in its US initial public offering. That's being reported by Reuters. If confirmed, the music arm of the gaming and social network giant has been valued at over $21 billion, defying a bout of market volatility with market flotations. Now, we did tell you this was going to be taking place in the US on Tuesday. Well, executives of the big tech companies spent parts of